In 2014, a gas station attendant named Ronald Reed died in Vermont. He fixed cars, swept floors, and wore a coat held together with safety pins. His neighbors assumed he had nothing. Then his will was read, and the town found out he'd quietly left behind $8 million. Nobody could explain how. Here's the thing that makes this story so uncomfortable. Ronald Reed never earned a big salary. He wasn't a secret entrepreneur. He didn't invent anything, inherit anything, or win the lottery. He pumped gas and, later in life, cleaned floors at a JCPenney. His lifetime income probably never crossed $40,000 in a single year. And yet, when the paperwork settled, he had more money than most doctors, most lawyers, and most business owners you will ever meet. So the obvious question is, how? And the answer to that question is going to rewire how you think about money, because it turns out that almost everything we associate with being rich is a costume, not a bank balance. Let's start with the part everyone gets wrong. People confuse income with wealth. They see a guy in a Porsche and think, that man is rich. But income is what you earn. Wealth is what you keep. Those are two completely different games, and most people are only playing the first one. Here's the uncomfortable math. A household pulling in $300,000 a year sounds wealthy. But if that household spends $290,000 a year on the lifestyle that goes with a $300,000 income, they are building almost nothing. Meanwhile, Ronald Reed took what little he made, spent almost none of it, and quietly bought shares of companies he understood: Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson, banks, railroads. And then he did the one thing almost nobody has the patience to do. He held them. For decades. Reinvesting every dividend. That's the entire trick. There is no other secret. And this isn't a one-off freak story. Back in 1996, two researchers named Thomas Stanley and William Danko published a book called The Millionaire Next Door. They spent years studying actual American millionaires, not the people who look rich, the people who statistically are rich. And what they found blew up every assumption. Most millionaires didn't live in mansions. They lived in ordinary middle-class neighborhoods. The majority had never spent more than $400 on a suit or more than about $30,000 on a car. Roughly 80% of them were first-generation rich, meaning they didn't inherit it, they built it. And here's the kicker. The single most common job among American millionaires wasn't hedge fund manager or surgeon. It was ordinary business owners and disciplined savers with completely unglamorous lives. The researchers came up with a phrase for the people who look wealthy but aren't. They called them big hat, no cattle. All the appearance of prosperity, none of the substance underneath. And when you start looking, they are everywhere. Which brings us to the real psychology here, and this is the part one wants you to sit with. In modern life, being rich and looking rich have become almost opposite behaviors. Think about what it takes to look rich. A leased luxury car. A bigger house than you need. Designer clothes, expensive dinners you photograph, watches, vacations you can't quite afford. Every single one of those things is money flowing out of your life. Looking rich is literally the act of converting wealth into appearances. It is spending your future to buy a costume today. Now think about what it takes to be rich. It's the car you didn't buy. The upgrade you skipped. The bonus you invested instead of blew. Real wealth is invisible by definition. It's the money that isn't being spent, sitting quietly in an account, compounding where nobody can see it. That's why the wealthiest person in the room is so often the one you'd never suspect. There's a great line that captures this. Wealth is what you don't see. The mansion you didn't buy is wealth. The jewelry you passed on is wealth. But because we can't see the restraint, we assume it isn't there, and we hand our respect to the people flashing the exact opposite. And the numbers back this up in a brutal way. Studies of car buyers have consistently found that the people driving the most expensive luxury vehicles are frequently not the wealthy at all, they're middle-income earners stretching to project an image. Meanwhile, a huge share of actual millionaires drive Toyotas and Hondas they bought used. The flex and the fortune almost never live in the same person. So let's get practical. If Ronald Reed could do it on a gas station income, the mechanics are not the hard part. Here are the 3 genuinely boring habits that separate the quiet rich from the loud broke. Habit 1: They let the gap do the work. Wealth isn't built by income, and it isn't built by cutting coupons. It's built by the gap between what you earn and what you spend. A person earning $60,000 who lives on $45,000 is building wealth faster than a person earning $200,000 who lives on $195,000. Widen the gap, and you win. That's it. Habit 2: They make it automatic and then they get out of the way. Ronald Read didn't check his portfolio every day. He didn't panic sell in 1987, or 2000, or 2008. He bought good companies and let time do the heavy lifting. Money invested at a reasonable return roughly doubles every 7 to 10 years. Which means $1 you invest in your 30s can become $4, $8, $16 by retirement, not because you were clever, but because you were patient. Time is the ingredient nobody can shortcut. Habit 3: They are immune to the scoreboard. This is the hardest one, because it's not financial, it's emotional. The quiet millionaire simply does not care what the neighbor's car looks like. They've opted out of the comparison game entirely. And that immunity is worth more than any specific stock pick, because the comparison game is exactly what drains everyone else's wealth into a costume. Now here's what I don't want you to take from this. This is not a lecture about being cheap for the sake of it. Ronald Read wasn't hoarding for no reason. He left most of that $8 million to a local hospital and library. The point isn't to die with a giant number. The point is freedom. The quiet millionaire buys the one thing that actually matters: options. The ability to walk away from a bad job. The ability to weather an emergency. The ability to say no. Because here's the truth underneath the whole story. Every dollar you spend to look wealthy is a dollar that could have made you actually wealthy. And the world will reward the costume with attention and applause, while quietly punishing you for it in the only scoreboard that counts, the one you can't see. Ronald Read understood something most high earners never figure out. He knew the game everyone else was playing was rigged against them, so he refused to play it. He wore the safety pin coat, drove the old car, and let $8 million grow in the dark. The question isn't whether you could do what he did. The mechanics are simple. The question is whether you can handle looking a little less rich now in exchange for actually being rich later. If this reframed the way you see the flashy spenders in your own life, do me a favor and hit that like button, because it genuinely helps this get in front of more people. Subscribe if you want more stories like this one. And next time, we're going to look at why some of the wealthiest people you'll ever meet deliberately keep their money boring on purpose and the strange strategy hiding behind it. See you then.